Hello everyone and welcome to BT Talks episode 14. Today I have the pleasure of welcoming my friend Anthony Flexas, who is an in-house exclusive agent here at the Aston Martin Residences, which is one of the finest luxury condominiums in downtown Miami. It is not yet completed. It will be completed, I believe, in 2022?
Late 2022.
Late 2022. But before jumping into all things Miami, downtown Miami, Aston Martin Residences, luxury real estate, all these super cool things, we are going to talk about Anthony, who he is, and how he came into the world of real estate. Anthony, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into real estate and how you got to Aston Martin Residences.
So first and foremost, thank you, Ben, for having me. I'm super excited. My name is Anthony Flexas, like you mentioned. I'm an in-house agent here at the Aston Martin. I feel privileged to be at such a project. I can give you a little bit of background. I'm a native, born in Miami, so I'm very proud of what our city has done and what we're getting to. It started back in 2005. The girl I was dating at the time was a receptionist for one of the big developments. I needed a part-time to pay for college, and I came in as an assistant to one of the top producers. When I realized the first year as an agent, as an assistant, that this could be something that I wanted to do, the people, just everything, it felt like the place where I belonged. I finished my college, I came in, and this is probably my 12th project. If you would have told me 10 years ago that I would be sitting with somebody here in the heart of downtown Miami selling such a prestigious project as Aston Martin, I would have probably thought you were crazy. I thought the odds were better that I would be on the moon versus being here. But it's been a very interesting ride. I've been fortunate enough to be at Cervera for those 15 years. I've had really good mentors, and slowly, as time progressed, I've seen the evolution of our city.
So you're a very loyal person to who you work with.
You know what? I agree.
It's important. It's something very important. You know?
I feel loyalty is a big quality to have.
It is.
I'm very protective of my people, but if I feel it as well, obviously my loyalty will be to them.
So what projects did you work on prior to joining the Aston Martin Residences team?
So I hope we have enough time, but my first project was, of course, the one Miami, which I think was the renaissance of our area particularly. Then I moved over to the resales of the Plaza. I did some of the resales at 500. I did resales at 50 Biscayne, the Loft 1, the Loft 2. I did some sales in the Marina Blue, the Marquise. I mean, I don't look as old.
So basically, as you can see, Anthony is pretty much the downtown Brickell expert. He has worked and knows pretty much every single building. And by doing so, and being consistent and meeting the right people and being loyal also, he got into this incredible project, Aston Martin Residences, which we will discuss about right now. So tell the audience about the birth of Aston Martin Residences here in downtown Miami, how it came here, and why Aston Martin decided to partner up and with developers and start here.
So it's a very interesting story. As someone that has been in the business as long as I have, always the biggest complaint that I got, particularly to this area, was that we really didn't have first-class luxury. Mm-hmm. And when we talked about first-class luxury, it was like going to Paris or going to London and staying in something like Four Seasons or St. Regis. So there was a development at that point that was the Epic. The second lot was put on the market.
Yep.
It definitely, I recall waking up one morning and it just shattered all the sales that we had done. It was the largest transaction up to that point. We sold 1.3 acres for a little bit over 125 million.
Wow, that's impressive.
So back then, about 6 years ago, was just like impressive. You know, how could somebody pay that much for that land? We found out a little bit later on, it was a group from Argentina called the Cotto family.
Okay.
They basically bought it and they really wanted to bring something really above and beyond. And I think that Aston, you know, it's a very special company. And I think that when you talk about a company or a brand, I would say, it's really about the experience. If you look at these brands like Tesla or Apple.
It's all about the experience. Everything is, you know, even what we're doing, you know, when we present different projects, whether it's in Miami or anywhere else, it's really not just about the building itself, it's the whole experience, the living experience, and obviously everybody has different needs, but it's so
I agree.
People who connect with the Aston Martin brand have a passion for this brand, and it's an incredible brand. Will definitely resonate with Aston Martin residents.
I agree. So as a car guy that I am, I know that Aston's a very special brand and it has a certain niche. And I think that when you own a certain niche, it's a really smart business plan. If you look at the cars and you look particularly at Ferrari and Lamborghini, they're more into the sports.
Of course, yeah.
If you look into just luxury, you're looking at Bentley or you're looking at Rolls Royce. But when you look at Aston, it really blends the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you may not necessarily resonate with the car and the engine, but like you said, the experience of getting in, the way the leather smells, the way your hand feels on the steering wheel, just the isolation of the sound. So it makes you feel that level of luxury. And they said, you know what? We can very easily create an ecosystem, and that same buyer can go into the apartments. And even a better way of looking at it is, even if the buyers never really sat in an Aston Martin, they can definitely resonate with the best finishes, the best amenities, and in my humble opinion, one of the best locations in the city.
For sure. I think, as Anthony is saying, downtown Miami has seen tremendous growth over the past 10 years.
I would say yes.
And, over the next 10 years, it's going to grow even, more and more.
I agree.
A lot of things are happening in Miami, and more specifically downtown Miami. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how what Aston Martin is going to offer its future residences?
Sure.
What is very specific to this building, and why people choose to live at Aston Martin residence?
So I think for starters, when you say that we're in the first and only Aston Martin building in the world, I think it's a huge statement to make. And again, as a native, as I am, I'm very proud that they chose our city. There's such amazing cities in the world like Tokyo, London, Paris, New York.
And they chose Miami.
And they chose Miami. I think that they know something that a lot of us already know. They realize that it's a great city to be in. And like you mentioned, the projection is that it's only going to get better.
Yep.
So we definitely designed one of the tallest towers south of Manhattan. It'll be the tallest residential tower. Mm-hmm. We stand at 66 stories. It's about 815 feet tall. So once you're at the top levels, you can almost pretty much see the entire city. Secondly, we really spent a lot of our time and our resources on giving you the best finishes.
Yeah.
We really gave it that English touch that a brand like Aston Martin can only bring.
So a lot of craftsmanship.
Correct.
And a lot of very detailed things, and the materials that are used.
So just to kind of give you an idea, Aston is known for having one of the most supple leathers in the world. Their cows are raised in a very cold climate in Scotland. They're very hairy. And the main purpose of that is that when you cultivate that leather, there's no imperfections like mosquito bites. So they use that top 10% to pretty much make their interiors. So that same philosophy to quality, consistency, and most importantly, authenticity, you're going to see throughout our building. So you can open up our door hinges, and our door hinges are all going to be stainless steel. Our doors are going to be solid. We've decided to marble up our entire residence once you move in. Our cabinets, we went with a brand called Bultub. We definitely really were very picky on choosing the vendor that shared a lot of their philosophy. Mm-hmm. Even our balconies are also going to be finished as well. And all that, at the same token, we're giving that buyer that ultimate experience.
So how many residences are there total in Aston Martin residences, and how many penthouses?
Okay.
And more or less, you can tell a little bit about the pricing and space you have and what's available.
So if you look at Aston, and again, I'm gonna go a lot to the brand because it's the philosophy that they used. The brand has only made about 90,000 cars in a little bit over 106 years.
Wow.
Which, if you look at the magnitude of what Aston is as a brand, it's really impressive. So when you look at every car, it's like a fingerprint, and we realize that every buyer has a certain need. So we necessarily just didn't want to have one type of residence. We range anywhere. We have a total of 391 residences, and they're basically unique to themselves because there's only one of a kind in the world. And we went between a 1-bedroom all the way up to a 5-bedroom on our regular floors. And you're looking at about 800 square feet to about 4,000. For those of us that like the meters, you're looking at about 70 to about 400 meters. And then as you get up to the crown of the building, which is going to be between 56 and 63, we have 7 lower penthouses. And the best way to remember is think of the continents. There's 7 continents.
That is very cool to have put together. So yeah.
I joke around that they're very
But
modest.
it's a good,
But they're between 9,000 to almost 12,000 square feet on one entire floor.
So it's a villa in the sky.
I
almost.
agree. I would say even more than that. I think the problem once you live in one of those amazing residences is you're never going to come down to the real world because you just have such an amazing property. In the penthouses, we included a private plunge pool. They're going to have their own private summer kitchens. And of course, when you talk about the only building of Aston, there's a very special gift that we're giving our buyers.
So that's that was my next question. So I think you already know my question, so you can talk about that.
Well, I know you've been very excited about it, just like a lot of our buyers. So what Aston decided to do, they chose our flagship line, which is the O1. It's part of our signature series. And it's basically, imagine on our lot, for those of you that don't know where it's at, we're sitting on where the river meets the bay. And our river in the past, like you would mention, I would say 10 years, has become very transient with boating. Particularly in the last month that we've all looked at refuge into nature, it's become even more popular. So those views are basically is as if you're going into the bay. So that the best views probably in the downtown area. So what we did is that if you purchase one of those units, you would qualify for a limited edition DB11. And those of us that know or don't know that DB11 is really the car that's driven by James Bond. So it's one of the most iconic cars.
So you can kind of be a James Bond.
Exactly. And it's even more special because you're getting the designation that it's a limited edition. Plus, once you go meet with the brand ambassador, you'll have certain packages only for those 47 cars.
Wow, that's incredible.
Now, I left this as a surprise because I hadn't really mentioned it. With all these companies coming out, there's something more.
Yeah.
We looked at the demographics, and obviously there's a huge demand for SUVs. So when Aston decided to make their SUV, they made obviously the perfect blend of luxury and utility. So they've upgraded their plan. You can either receive the DB11 Coupe, which is really nice and sporty, or you can go with the DBX SUV.
Wow, okay.
Which I think is a nice touch.
So that's a full Aston Martin experience. I mean, it's not just living here. It's really for, I think, even people who want to get into the brand and admire the brand, and it has so much history and it has so much elegance that it resonates with them. And obviously also the location. And I think there's like Anthony said, there is a reason Aston Martin decided to make their first, and only for now. I do not know if they're planning to do other ones, but the first one, which is in Miami, which is quite amazing, and it says a lot about Miami. Miami now is one of the top global cities. It comes very close to all the big cities we know: London, New York, Los Angeles, Hong Kong, all these big cities. Miami is part of the top cities, and that's why also you see a lot of people now making their primary residence here. Obviously, there's a lot of secondary residences, but Miami and South Florida is really an incredible place to live and even work.
I agree.
Downtown Miami, there's actually, so to come to a little bit downtown Miami, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of startups that are coming down to settle here. There's a lot of creatives that are here. It's also very accessible. There's just a lot happening. So can you tell us a little bit what are the main things happening in...
So just to give you a background for those of us that are not familiar with the area, 10 years ago, basically, you only had businesses, and at 2 o'clock, people would flee out into the suburbs. Yeah. In the last 10 years, fast forward, I think that we're very fortunate to have, within walkability, we have, of course, the AAA Arena, which is a phenomenal venue for events. We also have the Perez Art Museum, the Frost Science Museum right next to it. And again, these are all within walking distance to our building. I think a huge venue, which was great, was the Performing Arts.
Yep.
It brought a certain level of culture to the city, which we wanted. Infrastructure, which you touched, we have the Metro Rail, Metro Movers that connect you to the airport, so that gives you the connectivity. And of course, we have the Bright Line, which I think is a very important thing, our high-speed train.
That is something I actually used prior COVID a lot, and I used it to go to Fort Lauderdale, to Palm Beach, and it is exceptional. The experience you have with the Bright Line is exceptional. So, and I think they're going to add additional stops at some point.
So currently now it's Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach. The Orlando one will come online very soon. And they're also going to do a pit stop at Aventura Mall.
Yeah.
So the reality is, it's not only, like you mentioned, the experience you can have a glass of champagne. I think it's the consistency of being able to get on and being guaranteed being there in 30, 40 minutes or whatever it is.
Of course.
Now, as a city, in the last few years, I would say there's been a lot of tax benefits, particularly for Florida. If you look at the state of Florida, there isn't a state tax. So in our statistics that we did probably the last 6 months, we're seeing a lot of Northeasterners, New York, Chicago, California. They really have always liked Miami, and particularly Aston has done what a lot of the buildings have been done, has really brought them into downtown Miami. Why? A lot of people usually looked at the beach, but the beach has become a little bit beach-centric.
Yeah, that's true.
Here it's kind of like living in Manhattan, and that
but
would be
without,
more like
yeah,
the beach.
without the whole craziness. I think
Correct.
the experience of living, whether it's Brickell, which is connected to downtown, or downtown Miami, which is now really, I think, the hot spot. You get a full experience. You have a lot of activities, all sorts of entertainment. From concerts, theaters, gyms, yoga, restaurants.
And as somebody that loves food, we probably have the best restaurants in the area.
Incredible restaurants. And the good thing is that it's actually really close to the beach if you decide to go to the beach. But living in an area where you have access to everything and there's a lot happening, I mean, you can feel it by being here. You can walk everywhere. And of course, you're close to the water. So anywhere you're close to the water, I think your life is just better.
I agree, and I agree.
I mentioned it a lot. We discussed about it in previous BT Talks. I actually had a special BT Talks with my friend Wallace Nichols, who wrote the book Blue Mind, which I actually strongly recommend. But it's true that Miami is a city surrounded by water, and that is just like incredible. I mean, when you drive by, what is it,
the causeway.
The causeway, and you look at all Miami and the blue waters and the buildings, it's phenomenal. So, people come here actually when they want to buy property and they want the view. That's like the number one. And it changes your day, it's true.
So I got to add to that point, again, for Aston, I've had the privilege of traveling to many cities and countries, and particularly the water, we also have another beautiful thing. We have a lot of lighting. The lighting in Miami is one of the best.
Light and
lightings.
water, yeah. I have some friends, they're like telling me like, your photos are so cool. And I was like, yeah, I may have a good eye, but the light is just incredible.
Statistically, I'm sure that studies show that the better environment and the lighting, and it just makes you feel better. So that's a big part of our design, and I'm glad that you touched that point. We basically were inspired by a sailboat, so most of the building's exterior is going to be glass.
Yeah.
So it'll really give you that interaction that we all desperately want, which is the views of the boats, of the manatees, and of course the lighting.
Yeah.
So specifically this time of the year we're getting into now, it starts getting colder. So Miami, I think, goes right into season.
So season in Miami starts actually mid-November.
Correct.
So I think we're going to see a lot of people come down here. So Anthony, thank you so much
for
being a fantastic guest on my BT Talks and welcoming me here at the Aston Martin Residences Sales Gallery. It's a beautiful project. If anybody wants to learn more about this project, feel free to contact me or Anthony. I'll send you information, presentations, videos, and if you happen to be in Miami, you're more than welcome to come to the gallery. You have to see it. It's really an incredible project. So, and everybody who tuned in, thank you so much. I really appreciate. Thank you, and until next time, have a fantastic day. Thank you.
Thank you.